Welcome back to Premier League predictions. This year for the 24-25 season, I will be predicting where your team will finish. This is a spoiler alert because by the end of the season, you're going to be like, wow, how has he predicted it 100% correctly? Well, guess what? I'm a philosopher when it comes to this. And last year, I predicted most of the key things correct, and this year is just going to get better. And this time, we are going to start with the top, finish with the bottom, and then with the awards at the end, individual ones, manage the year, player of the year, golden boot, golden glove. But anyways, with the champion, we're gonna start with Arsenal. All right, I will admit I am a fan of Arsenal, but this is the first time ever, all right, in at least 20 years in my lifetime as a fan, all right, that I'm predicting Arsenal to win the league. All right, and Arsenal this season is going to win it due to the amount of goals they concede, which is going to break, I'm going to predict it, the Chelsea record for least goals conceded ever in a season. If you look at their focus in the transfer window, they get Calafiori, who's a guy who can play left back and left-sided center back. Now, many people are assuming that he's going to come in to play left back mainly, but the thing is, Gabriel, which I love very much and has, developed since he's came here from France, right? Has been error prone, and I believe this brings in competition. If Gabriel starts making mistakes alongside with Saliba as a partner, he's gonna get replaced by Calafiori. And also, I seen Timber in the preseason games that I've watched. Two of them here in California. Timber has been playing center back a lot, and I genuinely believe that you have a lot of pressure if you're Gabriel, right? Because Saliba we know is a sure thing. That Timber and Calafiori could come in and replace him, and these are two solid options. And also on the left side, I think Zinchenko should get shipped off to whatever club puts in a 10 million offer minimum, because Timber and Calafiori can play left back and they do it way better. And also Tomiyasu, who has a bit of an injury right now, can also come in and play left back better than Zinchenko. So Zinchenko has no place in this club anymore. His days are over. If the likes of Smith Rowe are gone, Zinchenko should be next, because there's no room for him with Calafiori coming in. And also they're trying to bring in Marino from Sociedad. So it's a lot of more... we haven't signed that attacker, which Arsenal are confident in them being able to score enough goals with Kai Havertz or Gabriel Jesus at striker, which is questionable, but I think it's enough to win the league this season, considering that Man City so far has not made any moves, and I don't intend on seeing any major moves with Man City, considering the 115 charges being occurring in September, and I feel like they don't want to make any moves for the rest of this transfer window because they don't want to risk anything, and they want to have the best possible chance of not being found guilty for those charges that they're being accused of. So I'm thinking this is the squad that Man City will be going with, and considering there's more Champions League games this season, I believe they won't be able to win the league, considering that they haven't made too many big signings, but they have let go of big names like Julian Alvarez. But that brings me to number 2, Man City. I think obviously they haven't made big signings, but De Bruyne's coming back, and he's healthy for the beginning of the year. That's like a signing. Obviously, the lads like Phil Foden that have just came back from international tournaments are, going to take a little bit of while, maybe 1 or 2 weeks before they start starting, and I believe they may drop points if they're going to take those players slowly. There's some key players that just came from tournaments that went deep. So that's always a factor, Kyle Walker as well. But Man City will have enough to get second place. I don't think it's going to be too much of a title race as well, so you can quote me on this one. I think Arsenal's going to win this by a minimum of 8 points. You heard me, 8 points, and they're going to break the less goals conceded ever, Chelsea's record, like I just said. Third place will be a bit of a hot take, but I think Newcastle returns to the Champions League. Now, you may be saying, well, they haven't been too active in the transfer window. Well, I think they are going to be able to sign Mark Guehi from Crystal Palace, all right? Obviously, I'm not going to do this video after the transfer window is over, so I have to predict some of these transfers, and Guehi, I think, will eventually join Newcastle. Newcastle hasn't made a major transfer, and I believe that will be their big boy transfer, as well as Sandro Tonali coming back from suspension very soon, which will be like a new signing because we didn't see much of him. Towards the beginning of the season, we did see Sandro Tonali at Newcastle, and I believe Newcastle, with Tonali, the little sample size that we saw, was a very good team. Bruno Guimaraes alongside Tonali is one of the best midfielding duos in this league, and as well as Newcastle is very difficult to beat at their home, considering their home advantage. So I can see them also focusing on the Premier League. They don't really have to play Champions League. but they will be focusing on the league, and I believe they're going to be able to make a fight and get into the third place position, which will give them Champions League next season. Now, the final spot, it's going to be another one, but with the signing of Solanke, I think you replace Harry Kane very well with Solanke coming in, right? And Solanke scored almost 20 goals with Bournemouth. The service that he's getting at Bournemouth will be nothing close to the one that he's going to be getting with Heung-min Son, Madison, Gray, Kulusevski, all the Bentancur, all these players are a lot better than the ones that he was playing with at Bournemouth. And now he's going to score, in my opinion, much more goals than he did at Bournemouth, which is 19. I think he's going to have at least 5 to 6 more goals at Tottenham. So the Solanke deal was a great deal. I always thought that they were going to go out there and replace Richarlison, considering that he scored, 12 goals in the Premier League in the past 2 seasons since he's arrived, which is absolutely horrible, considering that Solanke went in season in Bournemouth last year, scored more than Richarlison, and Richarlison was a pretty big buy. So I think, Ange obviously has his problems. Corner kicks was one of their weaknesses. But it's more of his team. He's bringing in more of his guys, and I think they will make improvements, and it will be good enough to make Champions League. They're a better team than they were last year, and last year they got 5th. So this year, I believe they will get 4th place. 5th place, coming in short, it will be Liverpool. Made no signings. They just made a signing of a backup goalkeeper. Considering that they just missed out on Subamendi, they should have gone out and got another midfielder. Considering that their manager is already saying that Endo isn't good enough for Liverpool, you had to go get yourself another midfielder, but it seems like you're not. And, this is a very transitional period for Liverpool, and I could definitely see them doing worse than they did last year. And, they're also going to be in the Champions League. There's more games. That's a big factor in depth, and making 0 signings and even making a sale of Carvalho doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And I'm going to say Liverpool drop off a bit, not too drastically like Man United or Chelsea, but they're going to come to 5th place, and Tottenham is going to beat them out for 4th, which it could still be Champions League qualification. I'm not sure how that 5th place position is, because I know England missed out on it, and I believe Germany and Italy got it. So now they have 5 teams that qualify in the Champions League, considering the new format. But my understanding is next season for England, there's no chance that 5th place makes the Champions League. So they will be in the Europa League next year. We got 6th place. It will be Man United. It's an improvement. They made some big signings, prior to them making the De Ligt and Maserari signings. I actually had them at 8th place again. But those are some pretty big signings. But filled the butts, Man United. Erik ten Hag hasn't convinced nobody that he has been able to bring this team back to where it was in their glory days. They won't be making no title contention like some fans of United have been saying, but I do see improvements. And obviously they're going to be playing Europa League and the Premier League. Europa League is also going to have more games, but in the Premier League, they have tons of injuries already. Lenny Yoro, 70 million center back, injured. Tons of injuries. That's all they get. And it's a curse, or I don't know if it's because they got Arsenal's prior physical coach or whatnot, but they have been just a curse with injuries, and I almost feel bad for Ten Hag. But now that he's getting all these signings, and they're even linked to Frankie de Jong, you must say that this is more of a Ten Hag team. So the pressure's on for him to get Champions League football. If he does not get Champions League football, I believe he should be sacked, because they brought him De Ligt, right? Lisandro Martinez, Onana, Anthony, all these players that he's managed previously are all at Man United. This is like the former Ajax team now over here at Manchester United. You even bring in from the Netherlands, Van Nistelrooy, to come be the assistant coach, and it's like you have all the elements. Obviously, you're gonna make the excuse of injuries, but I believe Man United have all the elements to even challenge for the title, but they won't do that. And I believe they make Champions League, it'll be a successful season. They don't have to win the FA Cup, they don't have to win the Europa League, but if they could make Champions League, that would be success for Ten Hag, and he should stay if he does that. But if he doesn't, sack him. No more mediocrity being good enough at Man United, because it sucks as a footballing fan to see a club with so much history be fighting over there with the likes of Bournemouth, Fulham, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, all those mid-table clubs. Absolutely atrocious. But this brings me to 7th place. Kind of a hot take considering how good they were last season and how much respect Unai Emery has been getting from the Premier League, but it's going to be Aston Villa at the 7th position. Now, you may be saying, why Aston Villa at 7th after they got Champions League football? Well, the thing is, Last season, it was a poor uh, showcase of talents from the Premier League from fifth and down. Tottenham at one point didn't even want to win any more matches because it would help Arsenal win the Premier League. So they're over here throwing it against City, right? So and you ask anybody, any Tottenham fan, anybody in the Tottenham camp saying, would you rather make the Champions League last season and see Arsenal win the Premier League, or do you rather be in the Europa League and see City win it? Everybody's choosing fifth place with City winning it. So that just shows, how much Tottenham really wanted that top four. So Villa was always going to get that. Obviously, Newcastle dropped off. United was banter. Chelsea, come on, do we even have to speak about them? It was kind of sad. So Villa got that. But the thing about Unai Emery is when he gets in these European competitions, he always makes it far. If you look at the Villarreal squad that made the semifinals, right? They were in the mid-table of the La Liga, right? So Unai Emery is the type to just focus on the Champions League, make it to the quarterfinals, have a good paper with Villa, which he could, considering they had such a good transfer market with like the likes of Onana coming in, but drop off in the Premier League. And that's what I see them doing. It's not going to be a crazy drop off like the Villarreal thing that he had going where they were like 7th or 8th. I mean, when they were like 8th, 9th, when they finished there in La Liga but make it to the semi of the Champions League. I think they're going to still qualify for the Conference League, but they're going to have a decent run in the Champions League. Unai Emery style there. He doesn't have the perfect track record when it comes to the league competitions. Obviously, with Villa, he made the Champions League. But if you check what he did with Arsenal, he never really made it to the Champions League. But he did get to a Europa League final. So it shows the type of manager where his successes will be. So Villa, I see them dropping off. And also, Ollie Watkins, I think, will also have a drop-off from last season. Not too bad. I think he'll score 15 goals. But not what he did last season. West Ham, one of the winners of the transfer window. They're going to make it to 8th, borderline. Now, the thing is, I'm also not convinced with Lopetegui. Obviously, we've seen what he's done with Real Madrid and other Spanish clubs. But he's coming into the Premier League with a team that isn't the best team in the league, like he had it with Real Madrid, right? He's going from Cristiano Ronaldo to Jared Bowen, But obviously, he had a decent little job with Wolves. So he has shown that he can have Wolves, he could have teams, mid-table teams having a good run of games. He made them tough to beat. But the thing is, West Ham's a bit different. I don't know how he's going to make the style of play go because obviously you can't really play the way you were playing with Real Madrid and the way that you're going to have West Ham playing. Considering that Paqueta's future, you don't know if he's going to get suspended or not. But this team can play without Paqueta. And I'm thinking Paqueta eventually will get a bit of a suspension, kind of like Tonali in the middle of the season. So if they had Paqueta for the whole 38 games, I might have put them over Man United at the 6th place position. But that's what's concerning to me. He's a key player for them. So they did bring in a lot of good players, but that Paqueta thing, if you could put him and Alvarez, Bowen, Somerville, it's amazing. But he's a key player in my opinion. He's very creative. But we'll see what happens there. I'm just going to play it safe. 8th position. 9th is Chelsea. You might be saying, where is Chelsea? Well, yes, they could sign 40 players. But the thing about Chelsea is they've invested over 1 billion players. 0 world-class players. Zero. Aside from Cole Palmer, nobody is in debate for world class. You could say, Reece James at one point. Yeah, at one point. Now the guy can't play 10 games in a season. It's kind of disgusting. You bring in all these players. It's all little itsy-bitsy, like, decent player. He's decent. Mid. C plus signings, a bunch of them, and it accumulates to 1,040 players. You think Todd Bowley's putting up an NFL roster spot because in the NFL, if you don't know, it's 53 players for the NFL season, and he's already 43, 44 players registered. Like, someone tell him it's the wrong football, mate. But it's absolutely atrocious the way he's ran the club. But I believe 9th place is good enough because they do have a lot of options going up. They have Nkunku. They do have a Cole Palmer. They have Enzo still, Caicedo. The Gallagher move, I don't know what's going on there. Apparently they want to get in Joao Felix instead. I don't know. It's weird what's going on with their transfer business. They haven't gotten one world-class player, like I said. They finally had a turning point with Pochettino, and then he gets, fired or they mutually part ways. If Pochettino was here, I actually would have had them having a Tottenham type of year and probably put Newcastle out. Or no, I would have had them 4th instead of Spurs because Pochettino actually made Chelsea a hard team to beat once he figured out the squad, once he had his regulars. Now you get rid of him. You bring in a guy who brought up Leicester up, and now it's kind of questionable in my eyes where you're going. This manager just proved that he could come out of the championship, and you're giving him the keys to $1 billion investment. It's kind of saddening how Chelsea have fallen off, but I'm just gonna say that they're gonna make it to ninth. It's sad. It's sad, but they're gonna be underwhelming again. The manager will get sacked by January, and it's gonna be another bad season. And Todd Bowley's gonna be the most hated on owner in the Premier League. Yep, it's gonna happen. 10th place, we're gonna go with Fulham. They bought the legend Emil Smith Rowe, but I do like the attack. They still have Iwobi. They have Raul Jimenez. They have tons of options going up. They still have Diop. They still, they're still making moves. They're linked with Anderson from Crystal Palace, which I think eventually he will be transferred to Fulham, which will be a nice little partnership with Diop. Still have Leno. There's a lot of pieces there. I believe they need a center back and a CDM, and then they could really get to this 10th position, which I think they will eventually make those moves because it seems like they're investing quite a bit into Fulham right now. But it's going to be a good year for Fulham due to their attacking options. And they're going to end up getting a center back, which is another prediction I have to make here. But Fulham also having a really good manager as well is going to be the difference on them making 10th place. So they've made the proper investments. They're going to make more investments. And they have a good manager. I could see them getting 10th place right below Chelsea. 11th, we're going to go Bournemouth. This is another one that I'm going to be kind of predicting them making a transfer here because they did sell Solanke for 65 million pounds. But Eddie Nketiah, I could definitely see getting transferred to Bournemouth for 35 million and a buy-on clause, all right? Because Bournemouth need a striker, and if they go in without a striker, then I could see them going, relegation style, like relegation battle. But I do think they're gonna eventually get a transferred in Eddie Nketiah or a striker of that type of level. That's 30-40 million, and they're gonna make 20 million in the profit of Solanke deal because you can't just get rid of a player that made almost 20 goals. You can't just say, oh, you know what, the next bench player. No, you got to go and invest that money or else you're going to end up having a problem with goal scoring because you take away Solanke's goals, you're in a relegation battle, mate. So if you can't go and get a striker like Eddie Nketiah, who, if he next season, let's say he scores 16 goals for you, right, and you finish 11th, and you bought him for 40 million, let's say, you could sell him for more than Solanke because he's way younger. It's something that Bournemouth should be looking at, in my opinion. And I think they will make that move eventually in this transfer window. 12th place is Brentford. They have one of the most underrated managers in the league in Thomas Frank, which I believe still has Ivan Toney. You still have class players like Mbeumo. They still have a great system. I do think they're never really going to be able to overachieve due to them not really investing too much. But they do bring in Carvalho from Liverpool, which I believe is going to be a nice little creative player to put around Ivan Toney. And I think Ivan Toney obviously is running down his contract, and he's going to have a stellar year this year. Considering that he's going to be looked at by many big clubs, and he wants that payday. So look at Ivan Toney to be one of the top goal scorers this season. Then we're going to look at Brighton at 13. Brighton, they always make these transfers, 100 million for Caicedo, and then a random lad is going to come in and just do the same job, and Enciso is that guy. I saw him in the Copa America and for Brighton last year. He is going to be the next player from Brighton that's going to go for 100 million in a year or two. He's very good. He's someone I'm high on, and obviously they keep their fullbacks in Lamptey and Estupiñán. You still have Lewis Dunk, but you do get rid of Gross, which is kind of sad. But they have tons of talent going forward. They still have Danny Welbeck, the Brazilian, Pedro. I forgot his name, but João Pedro, sorry. And then Evan Ferguson. You still have all these talent going forward. I can see Brighton is always going to be around this and definitely going to have some transfer business to be doing next year with Enciso. Trust me, with Enciso, he's going to be going for 100 million next year or in 1 or 2 years. He's class. But anyways, 14th, it's going to be Crystal Palace. They're going to be losing a lot. Guehi will be on the way out. Anderson, maybe. I'm thinking yes. And then they're going to have to bring in some center backs to replace them. So if you're getting rid of your back line like that, it's going to be kind of a hole. And I think you are going to be doing worse than you did last year. Obviously, you still kept Eze. You still have Bateta, who if he could be anything that he was last year towards the end of the year, then obviously you're gonna have a great striker next season. You have Adam Warden, who I think is gonna do extremely well next season. That's the thing. They still have a lot of talent on the team, but they do lose the likes of Elise, who's class in my opinion. But it's gonna be an interesting year. I think it's gonna be a bit of a drop off. They obviously have a better new manager now, a young guy who's came in and changed football for Crystal Palace and made them a really good team last season, embarrassing the likes of Man United. So I could definitely see Crystal Palace having a bit of a drop off, but not enough to have a relegation battle, just due to the talent that's left and the quality of the manager. Then we have 15th, Leicester City. Leicester City doesn't have a bad squad. They've made a couple transfers, not too many transfers. They still have the likes of Ndidi. They still have, tons of quality. Daka, Jamie Vardy's still there. It's going to be interesting how they manage it with the new manager, obviously. But Leicester City, they're not going to relegate. They might be in a bit of a battle, but they still have tons of quality and not enough, investment to be able to be back where they were 3-4 years ago, but they're definitely going to still be in the Premier League next season. 16th, Wolves. Wolves is a team that has let go of their best players in Neto and not been able to replace them. And if you can't do that, you're just going to drop off more and more and more and more. But the thing is, Wolves does have a good manager, so I think that will be the difference in them relegating, but they will be in a relegation battle. Obviously, if it weren't for Everton's point deductions that they get every 5 minutes, I would put them a lot higher. I actually do like Sean Dyche and his system and the way him and Everton are like a match made in heaven. So I would have had them higher, but I don't have confidence that they won't get another point deduction. These guys get point deductions for every transfer that they have. It's absolutely ludicrous. But I think they're having a new stadium that's going to be waiting for them, and I'm going to have to go with them just barely escaping relegation, and they really got to, see that court that's going to happen in September between Man City and the Premier League. If Man City isn't relegated to League One football, or at least Championship football, then Everton should not see any more point deductions, or else they should sue the Premier League because it's disgraceful. At the moment, you can't do much because City hasn't been, put on trial, but they're gonna go on trial now, and Everton look closely at that because you could definitely, benefit from the results that Man City, positive or negative, so that's something that Everton should be looking at. But I think they won't relegate. Sean Dyche has done an amazing job, and it's a match made in heaven for those two lads. It's like soulmates, the full two. You put some big center backs for him. And this lad's going to do bits over there. But the 3 relegation teams, it's going to be Nottingham Forest, Ipswich at 19, 18, 19, and Southampton 20. Ipswich, you look at the squad top to bottom. You've got a couple, talented players, but nothing that puts my eyes out. McKenna should have taken the Chelsea job. I'll say that. Should have not stayed at Ipswich. They remind me a lot of Luton last year. Small team, doesn't make too many transfers, just transfer here and there. And they think they're going to come in and with their home advantage, the weird stadium, they're going to come in and stay in the Premier League. That was never going to happen, lads. And it's the same thing I'm seeing with Ipswich. You have a good manager, but he should have taken that Chelsea job. You're going to go back to the Championship. Southampton, too. You have a couple great players here and there. But I just don't trust the manager here in the Premier League. It's a different level. You're going from top dog to the bottom. So I see them getting dead last. Ipswich 19th, not too far above. And then Nottingham Forest is a team that's going to go straight down. They haven't made too many transfers. I think it's a lot of mediocrity. You have Gibbs. I think he's a good player that's going to be transferred to a mid-table squad. I could see him getting transferred to maybe Brighton or Crystal Palace, something like that, Leicester City. He's obviously Premier League quality, but the rest of the team I just don't see too much, and I'm not a fan of the manager as well. It's kind of a mess that's gonna happen, soon with Nottingham Forest. I thought they were gonna go out there and invest properly, considering that they have in the past made tons of transfers, but it wasn't just not happening this transfer window. And I just see when I look at their squads here and their managers as well, McKenna, my opinion, he can't raise the club enough. So he should have left, but I don't see them beating out Wolves or Everton. I think Wolves and Everton still have more quality, still have decent managers, better managers than the other three. But It's kind of saddening to see Nottingham go down considering their Champions League history, but it is what it is. But that's what I got so far. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about the transfers here. But let's go to the individual, or what do you think about the projected predictions that I have for the Premier League next season. But now we get to Manager of the Year, which is gonna be Mikel Arteta for taking, Arsenal to win the Premier League. If he won Best Manager of the Year award last year, getting second place, what do you think he's gonna get if he wins it this year? He's gonna win it again. Player of the Year, I'm gonna go with Saliba, like I predicted at the beginning of the video. Arsenal will end up breaking Chelsea's record for least goals conceded. With their transfer plans, you could tell they really focus on the defensive side of the ball, which I think will end up benefiting Arsenal, and that will be the difference between them winning the league and City not winning it. So Saliba will get Player of the Year because he's going to be getting a tons of clean sheets. Golden Glove is going to be David Raya. Like I said, if you're going to be breaking Chelsea's record, your goalkeeper as well is going to get the Golden Glove. Golden Boot. The boring answer is Haaland. But I'm going to say Solanke. If Solanke was in the top 5 of the goals scored with Bournemouth, imagine what he's going to do with the likes of James Maddison, Son, Gray, Bentancur, all these creative players giving him service. Pedro Porro as well. So I'm just going to say Solanke is going to end up getting the Golden Boot. The boring answer is Haaland, but I'm just going to say Solanke. But anyways, leave a comment down below. What do you think about my predictions? I want to know why you may think differently. I think this is actually the year Arsenal will win it, which is probably the hottest take here. Chelsea stays in the bottom. I think that's a common take. Manchester United is in the top 4. Might be a hot take to many, but it'll be interesting how it goes down. But this is how 100%, if I had $1 million, I would bet it. It's in this order. But anyways, thank you guys for watching.